Yeah, so Nick and I worked on this. Nick and I were the original guys working on Flow for the PS3, and we have another segmented creature who eats food and digests it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the creature designs in Journey were at least somewhat inspired by the Flow style of creature.
I always wanted to push it even more, but
we had
only
the
so much
jellyfish. We had the jellyfish sound from Flow for a while in here, and it actually really worked pretty well.
Well, yeah.
It was pretty funny.
For a long time, the Guardian's face design was kind of a mystery, and that was definitely one of the hardest things for me to design in the game. And what actually brought me to the final solution was a drawing I did of the actual Journey character, where I tried to make an evil version of him. And even though that never really appears in the game, the idea of kind of an evil version of your own face was really kind of...
I think that's a fan art idea right there, too.
Yeah, it definitely was something that resonates. So.
But it's cool because they have only the one eye, so it just automatically feels sort of off kilter, you know, like there's something wrong or something deformed or something.
They also have the mask like you, but it lifts up to reveal the scary face, so it kind of makes you wonder what is under your own mask, or what is your true nature. Are you good or bad? It's kind of an interesting metaphor. The mountain's a lot closer now.
I always loved in this scene, and then in the next one, at the end of the next area, just the even though there's no moving facial parts, like there's no expression going on in terms of like moving eyes or eyebrows or something like that, when they turn to look, I always read so much emotion in that. I always, like, for me personally, it always, there's like such a connection there, especially in the next one.
What's really interesting is that originally the character designs that I was doing, we actually wanted them to have facial features. I drew a bunch of things with eyes, and we kept reducing the character design. I mean, it was originally a very humanoid character with arms. At one point, I even had multiple arms on the character. But
you played Goro from Mortal Kombat.
It was pretty crazy. But yeah, due to the game design and the nature of the project, where we wanted to kind of condense the concept of a journey down to its core.
Wait, you gotta go.
Yeah, let's go check out Gary the Scarf.
Don't let that guy lead yet.
Anyway, that's why.
Okay.
Oh, come on, guy.
You just start going.
Go.
No, he'll follow you.
Here's a big one.
Yeah, you'll convince him. It'll be worth it.
We need to see this.
Yeah.
Now let's say hi to Gary.
After the patch, it's gonna be gone.
I hope.
I think John had another one.
Hey, guys, who knows what's gonna happen after the patch?
So this is something.
Ah, Gary. Hi, Gary.
What is this?
Gary the Scarce is he's just a guy like anyone trying to get by in the world. He found a little place where he can hang out, and occasionally he gets visitors, and he really appreciates it. Looks like our friend likes him.
What's the true story, John?
So this, I guess, was a leftover from an early prototype that we just never deleted from the level.
Actually,
that's really a harsh thing to say about Gary.
It's a leftover from the Guardian who hasn't finished his meal yet.
Gary's gonna be fine, don't worry. He's not gonna be eaten by a Guardian.
So that's kind of an interesting...
So I think John and the other John, Nesky, found him a few weeks before shipping, but decided it might be a cool piece of history.
Well, we thought, since he'd already made it this far, it'd be a shame.
He survived for many years in that
Can't
location.
get rid of him. It's like a cop on his last day before retirement, you know. Can't get shot.
So here we are in the temple level, and the colors have shifted from scary blue, green to warm, inviting color gold. And originally it wasn't like that. Originally it was also blue, because originally this was part of that same level that we were previously in. But we really felt like after we added the kind of stealth gameplay with the Guardians, the players needed to feel more safe in this moment. So I had to kind of reverse the colors.
So initially this level, we didn't have this sort of energy field or rising water in this level, and it was just platforming all the way up to the top, and it was super brutal because if you missed one jump, you'd fall all the way to the bottom and have to start over completely.
And that was totally against the kind of mood that we wanted to.
You did build a fail-safe into that at one point. Where one of the little fish would take you back up, and that was even worse because then it took all sort of tension or anything out of it. Like,
so we kind of have this happy balance here where there still is some amount of tension in platforming, but you do have this safety net below you.
That's also just really beautiful. Like and it was fun musically too, because then I could kind of alter the music, whether you're above or below the kind of water, energy, soul juice.
Right, whatever you want to think of it as.
I always got freaked out when the designers would talk about, oh, this is the water's rising. It's like, oh, good, does that mean we need a water shader now? But again, Matt figured out a way.
Absolutely, the surface of that is completely fake. It actually uses particles from flour.
Yeah, we should demonstrate that. If you remember, there's water in flour.
This, as a side note, a lot of the interviews and stuff I've done, people have asked me what's my favorite area of the game, because for most people, I think it's probably the ending. But I think this area, this level for me is because it has this like very sort of like temple spiritual kind of feel to me. That's just really, I really think it's awesome, and it's such a different. It's like so much a part of everything that you've come from, but yet it really stands apart for me. Maybe because it's like the mechanic of it being vertical is novel from the whole rest of the game and things like that. But just to me, this is always just a very like emotional space, just even how it's designed.
It's interesting because it's sort of this temple area now, but originally
it was not a temple at all.
No, not at all.
It was a giant rocket ship.
It was the sci-fi version of Journey.
The center,
which will never see the light of day.
The center tower pillar here was actually, at one point, very early on in the project, considered to be a spaceship.
Not to make you feel bad or anything, but as I recall, there was some concept drawing that referred to this as a fuel depot.
Yes, the concept changed for the better.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Noah's Ark, because the past civilization is dying and the people are trying to survive. But
so up until this is like the largest cloth creature you've seen up until this point, and this is kind of foreshadowing again to what you'll see in the final level.
I love when it's like I always thought of it as a whale. I mean, it is, as with everything else, it's whatever you see it as, but to me it had a very whale-like quality, and I loved it was just like super majestic and huge but non-threatening. And there's that solo cello that Tina plays when it first comes out, that the full strings and the orchestra in Macedonia layer on when you jump on his back, and it's just, to me that's a magic moment.
Something I heard players doing, they talk about, is they'll try to climb the tower without actually activating any of the water. And if you have a really cooperative companion, you can do that. But apparently, if you can make it all the way to the little hole that guy comes out of, he's actually just sitting there, kind of living in his house, swimming around.
Yeah.
People really appreciated that.
You can actually do that solo if you have the white outfit.
I have never done it. I can't believe there's anything that I haven't done. I'm amazed. I'm hearing this for the first time. Leave it to players to try to do that, though, especially two players in a non-verbal communication agreement. Mm-hmm. That's really incredible.
Well, and sometimes one of them will have tried to get as little cloth as possible, too. But you can still even
Who'd have thought that, like, that there's the hardcore gamer appeal in Journey.
Play Journey in a hardcore.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this area here, if you'll notice, is kind of...
mirroring the first level.
Yeah, mirrors the first area, and the first area of the game is like a ruined version of one of these temples.
Sort of just sticking out, just the top of it, above the sand. Everything else has been filled in.
So this particular sequence was really the first one that was brought to a finished state. And we went through a lot of iterations trying to figure out what the message of this part should be. And is to kind of give the player a sense of purpose and to remind them that the mountain is very close. And this idea of a cylindrical image that envelops a player kind of really communicates this sense of your journey has weight or meaning behind it.
It's funny that this went, like, visually and in terms of kind of the substance of what you're seeing, went through so many iterations, and yet I think the music didn't change at all. I wrote essentially one version. I made a few revisions when the length of it changed, and I kind of did that sort of thing, but the sort of emotion of, because to me it was always, as soon as you reveal the mountain, in all the various iterations that this went through, it always culminated in some reveal of the mountain. And to me that always was very emotional, and very, like, and that shot right there is the one I was talking about before. I see so much emotion in the sort of ancestors' movement and language there, that it's entirely just my own subjective analysis, but I always found myself feeling really moved by that, which is what I think kind of led to the cue, this music being so kind of huge.
Yeah, when we first heard the cue, it was really emotional.
It was definitely something where we heard the cue and realized that we needed to make the sequence better to match the quality of the cue.
At the time, the reveal was not inspiring enough. Like, this is not powerful enough to match with the music. So
and then that's a problem, because then it feels like the music's trying to force something onto you, which is not the intent at all. So we have to make sure that the visuals match so it feels natural.
There were a couple places, there was a lot of that, what I call leapfrogging, where, like, I would write a cue, and then you guys would kind of design sort of inspired by the emotions of the cue, but then inevitably you'd make something that I thought was out, even, like, surpassed that, so I'd go and I'd try to make the cue catch up to you, and we did this kind of constant upping the ante thing. But there were a few places where, like, I wrote, like, in the initial reveal of the kelp forest, I wrote a really hugely rich, beautiful cue, and then the decision was to make it a more kind of spare.
We lowered the ante there.
So no, I don't think that that's not how I interpreted it. It was, to me, like, it was a conscious choice to be sort of sparse and like that kind of almost sort of surreal underwater sort of thing. It wasn't this big grandiose, like, reveal of some, you know, lost world or something, and so the cue, I pared it way back to fit, and it was a lot, you know, it's a lot better. Part of the whole just iterative process.
Definitely, you know, the game design creates constraints for the art and music like that.
And the programming creates constraints for everybody.
Well, that's one way of seeing it.
In that department, I actually feel like I made out like a bandit on this thing, because I felt that for all intents and purposes, I had no limitations technologically on the musical front. Like, we were able to implement a lot of simultaneous streams and every crazy idea on ways to make the music interactive and reflective of the player's experience moment by moment. I never felt like, well, that's a cool idea, but we got to come up with a compromise. Inevitably, when something became too complicated, it was not because the tech was limiting, it was because the idea itself was flawed. And so that, in that way, I feel really fortunate compared to every other department.
Yeah, Matt got to make up for you on the compromise.
Yeah.
So here there's a crack at the end where you can see some light shining through. This is some of a mistake we made. Initially, the crack was not very obvious, so a lot of people was blown by the wind here, and they think this might be the end of the world, so they turned around. And so we add that extra light in the end just to kind of lure you moving forward.
Right, and the whole design of this area is to encourage the players to stay together and to kind of huddle behind the same stones. So we're trying to make you feel closer and closer together. And like when you're separate in this level, you freeze up and you start moving slower. When you're together, you warm each other up and you can move faster. And so we're just really trying to build this bond between you and the other player and making it sort of a shared struggle.
This whole level is exactly that. It's a shared struggle to really connect players and create an emotional kind of bond. And then we have this kind of arc in the story where things are going really downhill, and then all of a sudden you have this reversal. And I think because things go really downhill first, the reversal becomes more powerful.
We do a lot of little stuff too, like when you're touching the other person, there's this sort of warm light that gets created between both of you, and lots of little signals that, hey, it's more cozy and nice to be with the other person than to be by myself.
And the music also, there's, at every point in the game, there's at least 2 different possible scores happening, because there's the single player version of the music and the multiplayer is always richer and more interesting, and usually kind of aimed to be more beautiful. Like, for example, earlier when you're first in the open desert and you're approaching that desert, the tower at the end that's really covered in the clouds and stuff, and with all the sort of swarm, the thing that we were talking about replaced the storm. When you approach that alone, it's very stark, and you almost don't hear that there's music. But when you're with someone else, there's like this lone viola singing out that you only hear if you're with someone, so that there is at least some like sense of beauty within the bleakness. But it only comes when you're with someone else. And this level is full of a lot of that as well.
So this area we're coming up to is kind of similar to the slowdown area in the canyon. I mean, what do we call it? The Sunken City. Because it's a little respite from the cold that you've been experiencing so far. However, it's much smaller than that area. So
You can see there is some ice building up on the player, which will probably melt away here. That technology took a while to come into place. For a long time, basically, the player just got covered by disco ball until they warmed up again.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of work in this level to really make it feel cold, like you were literally freezing up as you progress.
I think Steve Johnson added a lot in that department as well.
Oh,
like
yeah, the sound design.
The sound design of your like crinkling ice particles
Sounds so cool.
Actually, I want to just share Steve's story about how he actually made these freezing sounds. Actually, Matt, if you can just show us like the melting cloth, then the player will hear that sound.
You mean on this?
Right. Yeah, you should be hearing it. It sounds very convincing that things are freezing up. And the way he did it is he had old jeans, and he basically put them in the water and then put it in the fridge. And so it's a frozen old jeans, and then he started to just kind of push it, making crunching sounds.
I never heard that. That's awesome.
Right, and the other story is even cooler. It's just the footstep sound of walking in the snow. As you can see, the player sometimes struggle. Like this moment, it's like really struggling walking in the snow versus like moving relatively fast in the snow. So there's a various level of struggling, and so the 3 footstep sound in the snow is actually made by these chips inside the Sony office. They have various,
like Fritos and stuff?
Fritos, Lay's, and what's the other one?
Doritos. Is this all different?
Yeah, Doritos. And so I think
which one is the most struggle?
Dorito is the struggle. So basically, he grabbed a lot of these chips and then he just grind them into just dust, and then kind of just put the microphone into the chips, just creating these sounds. And then somehow actually the heavy footstep is actually the mixture of Lay's, Doritos, and Fritos.
Okay, all three.
Gotta combine.
Right.
Maximum struggle.
But then, he...
That's what you feel like after you eat all three.
Yeah, accidentally just flipped the bowl, so all these dust of chips are stayed in his office for about 2 weeks. You can smell them every time you walk in there.
It was worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's not the smell designer.
But that's the crunchy sounds you hear.
Yeah, so you did a lot of that kind of...
There's a bit of a technology thing that I've been seeing a lot in this level is we have a cloth simulation running on the characters. And those are pretty hard. At least it was hard for for me and the team to make it work. And the Colosseum can often get tangled up, where you'll sometimes see that the character's cape will get all knotted. And we tried for a long time to figure out a technology solution to it, but we could never do it. And so in the end, we just tried to fix it by adding some personality to the character, where you'll notice anytime his cape gets tangled, he gets kind of annoyed, and he'll sort of try to fix it and readjust himself, sort of flapping it or something.
Is that a sign why a lot of people think that the character is female? That they actually care about their dress.
Because they're vain? I don't think so.
I have no idea about that, but
I think it definitely adds personality to the character.
Actually, speaking of the character's gender, it's definitely something that in the process of designing the character I thought about, and I tried to keep, what do you call it? Anonymous?
Androgynous.
Androgynous, thank you.
Well, I guess both apply.
Yeah, really wanted to make it a character that people could identify, just, no matter who they were.
Yeah, they read onto it. I mean, I definitely have talked to a lot of women who just instinctively refer to the player as she and men as he without thinking about it, which is to me kind of the ideal.
Yeah, when we started this game, we said this is a multiplayer game happening between two humans, so gender and age should not be a factor when players are looking at each other. I think Matt did a really great job. Like, I don't even know I'm looking at that or a kid, man or woman, but we're all the same.
Dog, alien, who knows?
It was the same on when I was designing the sound that the player makes. That could easily have tilted it one way or the other as far as male or female or a specific kind of animal or something. And the idea was to make something that took a ton of. I mean, we went through a million subtle variations of the player sounds, and it's a
Cool.
Nice.
That was super close.
It's a combination of a lot of different things.
I almost got it. This whole area is like one of the scariest kind of encounters of the Guardian, because you're in this harsh environment. And for a long time it wasn't too scary, and one thing that we did to really make the gameplay have that tension was we slowed down the Guardian and made him have a wider kind of search ray.
Super predatory.
So he seems like he's looking for you. It's kind of scary, but we made it through all right. That was good.
Good job. Teamwork. Give him some hooks.